Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the April 10th, 2019 Pittsburgh Board of Public Education and Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit Legislative Meeting. Before we begin this evening, I'd like to ask everyone to please turn off all cell phones or put them on vibrate. Would everyone please rise so we can salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag. We will begin this evening with the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. Ms. Kramer, can we please have a roll call?
Mr. Carter.
Here.
Ms. Edwards.
Here.
Ms. Falls.
Present.
Dr. Holly.
Here.
Mrs. Kalida.
Mora.
Here, sorry, I was on mute.
Via phone, here. Okay. And Mrs. Kennedy.
Present.
Mr. Udine.
Here.
Ms. Wilson.
Here.
And Mrs. Wren.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Will board members please turn to the minutes from last month? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? Okay, if there are no, Ms. Falls.
Thank you. I understand that it was my mistake on the spelling of on page 12, line 14 of the what is it called? Minutes. That I spoke and said that the spoke committee was SPOC. The correct spelling of that committee is SPOAC. And another issue of misspelling was taken care of already. So, thank you, Ms. Wren.
Thank you, Ms. Falls. If there are no other corrections or comments or deletions, may I have a motion and a second for a roll call vote?
So moved as corrected. The minutes as corrected.
Thank you.
Okay, motion by Mrs. Kennedy, second by Ms. Falls. Mr. Carter. Roll call. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes.
Sorry for the error there. I
Had to do something special.
It's the new flip. It's a change. Change is good, right? Okay, the committee report on education that includes agenda item 21.01 is before you. Are there any questions or comments that were not covered in agenda review? Ms. Jenkins, do you have a correction?
I have a correction to the Business Finance General Authorization.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, that's right. Okay. If there are no further questions or comments, do we have a motion, a second for a roll call?
Point of information. Are we doing the IU or
We are.
Okay, thank you.
That's why she put it in the wrong section. Yeah. Okay. We have motion and a second now? Okay, thank you.
Second.
May we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Ms. Edwards.
Yes.
Ms. Falls. Dr. Holly.
Yes.
Mrs. Kalida.
Ms. Kalida. Mara.
Yes, sorry.
Mrs. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Udine. Yes. Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mrs. Wren.
Yes.
Committee on Education for the Intermediate Unit is approved 9-0.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. The committee report on business finance for the intermediate unit that includes agenda item 25.01 through 26.02 is before you. Are there any questions or comments that were not answered in agenda review? If there are no questions or comments, do we have a motion and a second for a roll call vote?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Ms. Edwards.
Yes.
Ms. Falls.
Yes.
Dr. Holly.
Yes.
Mrs. Kalida.
Yes,
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Udine,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson? Mrs. Wren?
Yes.
The report on the committee, for the Committee on Business for the Intermediate Unit passes 9-0.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Item 28.0 is the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit Financial and Travel Report for March 2019. Are there any questions or comments on the report? If there are no questions or comments, I'd like a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
This meeting is now adjourned. I would like to call the April 10th, 2019 meeting of the Pittsburgh Public Schools to order. Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Carter?
Here.
Ms. Edwards?
Here.
Ms. Falls? Here. Dr. Hawley?
Here.
Mrs. Kalida?
Here.
Here via phone. Mrs. Kennedy?
Present.
Mr. Udine?
Here.
Ms. Wilson?
Here.
Mrs. Wren?
Here.
All members present.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. At this time, I'd like to ask Veronica Edwards to share our core beliefs and commitments.
We will educate all children to their highest level of academic achievement. We will provide a safe and orderly environment for all students and employees. We will provide efficient and effective support for all students, families, teachers, and administrators. We will distribute resources in an efficient and equitable manner to address the needs of all students to the maximum extent feasible. We will improve public confidence and encourage strong parent/community engagement in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Will board members please turn to the minutes? Tonight, we will be approving the minutes for March 27, 2019 legislative session. Are there any corrections or additions or deletions? Okay, I'd like, Ms. Falls.
Same correction. It was done on Mount Oliver's time, and it should be ours.
Thank you, Ms. Falls. Okay, I'd like to have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of March 27, 2019 legislative session.
I move to, I make a motion to pass them as amended.
So, second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The minutes stand approved. At this time, I'd like to read the executive session statement. In addition to the executive sessions announced at the legislative meeting of March 27, 2019, the board met in executive sessions on April 3, 2019, and immediately before this legislative meeting to discuss various personnel matters that may include, but are not limited to, administrative vacancies and positions opened and closed. The board does not vote at executive sessions. The committee report on education and student performance is before you, submitted by Ms. Sylvia Wilson, chairperson, in her committee. The report includes agenda items 6.01 through 8.17. Would you please turn to agenda item 8.17? I'd like to give you the student suspension, transfer, and expulsion numbers for this month. 17 students suspended for 4 to 10 days. 3 students expelled out of school for 11 days or more. There were no items pulled for discussion at agenda review. Are there any questions or comments on the committee report on education at this time that were not answered in agenda review? Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Mrs. Wren. On 8.15, I see that we are expanding the Homewood Children's Village's lead partner agency to Linden. Will that make Linden a community school?
If we receive the grant, so that's depending on if we receive the grant. If we receive the grant, yes, they would expand to Linden.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions or concerns, do we have a motion, a second, for a roll call vote on the committee report for
I'm sorry, Mrs. Wren. I wanted to ask the question to the district for 6.04. Who will be the lead person to work on the Rethink Education? Is there a lead, or is there a lead person?
The lead person will be the PSC Executive Director, but right now Tara McCrohan, and then I will also be assisting Tara.
And when will they have their professional development on this project, since it's going to start in September, I assume?
So the next phase is to sit down and plan out the professional development based on all the pieces and all the individuals that we're going to put a part of that process.
And are we going to make sure that this is part of the student's IEP?
That's something we'd have to get to you. That's something we have to go deeper into and make sure we're okay to do that.
Okay, well, if you're going to be changing the processes of how children are learning, or if this is going to be an add-on, social emotional learning should, if I would think, would be a part of their IEP, and someone would have to explain that to the parents.
Yes, we'll make sure we take care of that.
I have a follow-up question on that same subject. Because the director of PSC is going to be overseeing this program, would it make sense to wait until we actually have a director of PSC so that they can provide feedback and input on this program?
When the PSC Executive Director comes aboard, we will then sit down and go through the process of what has been approved and then walk through what that would look like as far as professional learning and then the rollout.
The second question I have is, I know that we approved something a few months ago for SEL. How are these things connected?
That's the panorama survey.
Yes, I guess.
So it's not the actual instruction that will go in the classroom, it's just a survey for students. And we can combine the surveys that we provide.
Thank you.
Mr. Udine?
Thank you, President. As many board members know, I have been publicly discussing the internal curriculum that we use in Pittsburgh Public Schools to teach kids how to read. And it's a discussion that I think is extremely important for the board, for the administration, for teachers and staff, for students, for everyone to be cognizant of. It is my belief that if we are not using the best researched and most scientifically evidenced methods to teach kids how to read, then we are doing a disservice. And if we fail to teach kids how to read, then they are likely to struggle through mathematics, through science, through history, and all the other subjects that we put them through from K to 12. It is urgent that they learn the foundation of reading as early as possible. Preschool, kindergarten, first, second, third grade. Because if they don't have a solid foundation for reading by the end of the third grade, the likelihood is that they will never catch up. And for many students, that is a terrible, terrible sentence that will affect them the rest of their lives with poverty, with prison, with premature death, the school-to-prison pipeline. So I am planning to continue this conversation. The superintendent has been very open and inviting us to continue the conversation, has advised his staff, the administration, to engage in the conversation with us. I am engaging in that same conversation with members of the board because ultimately I think we will have to make a policy decision about whether or not we are going to keep our current reading curriculum or amend it or throw it out. And so I want to thank all the members of the board who have engaged with me so far. I intend to continue this conversation, this discussion. We have these children's future in our hands, and we have to make sure that we are giving them the absolute very best that we can. And that's why I'm raising this subject internally, externally, and throughout the city. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any other comments related to the legislative meeting? Ms. Kennedy?
Thank you, Mrs. Wren. I actually want to go to 7.03, which last week was a placeholder. And this week, among the things we have are the attachments showing us the amount per school along with the account lines. And with the last account line shown is for the district of 60,000, where the rest of the specific account lines are 37,000 altogether, with two of the schools having $0. I can understand Pittsburgh Online Academy not having any students taking AP exams, but I cannot believe that Brashear has no students taking AP exams. So I'm curious as to why that is $0. And I also want to know where we have the budget line for the district at 60,000, which is basically twice as much as all the schools combined.
So the AP exams are for those that we're paying for, are the ones that were on the Title I, and as of right now, there is an amount of 0 at this time.
Amount of 0 students at Brashear that are Title I eligible, that are taking AP exams? Is that what you're saying?
As of right now, what was reported, we only have 0, but we can look into it further.
Yeah, because I find that difficult to believe. But the other question is, so what is the $60,000 that's budgeted at the district level, not at the school level?
Yes. Yes, yes, we have the funding.
No, I'm asking, we have this attachment to the agenda item, and it shows line by line, Alderdice, $2,000 in a budget line. Brashear, 0, no budget line. Kappa, 16,000, a budget line. Carrick, 8,000, a budget line. Perry, 2,000, a budget line. SciTech, 5,000, a budget line. University Prep, 2,000, a budget line. Westinghouse, 2,000, a budget line. Online Academy, 0, no budget line. District, $60,000 and a budget line. So I want to know, what is that $60,000?
That's money that we pull and use to put into the budget lines to cover the cost of those exams for those students.
So the total of $97,000 includes that $60,000. So I'm really confused. So if that's money that is going to the schools, then why do the schools have it on their budgets? I'm really confused now.
We'll give another breakdown to the board.
Well, I can't vote on this if I don't understand this. I can't approve it. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but I don't understand the money aspect of it. Am I like?
So, Dr. Hamlin, so Ms. Kennedy, I would say we need to vote on this so you can make sure that those AP tests are getting paid for and it goes through. I can assure you that we'll provide you the documentation information you're requesting by tomorrow morning. Is that okay? I hope.
I will accept that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mrs. Wren, that is all.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. If there are no further questions or comments or concerns, do we have a motion for a roll call vote for the committee report on education and students' performance?
Second.
Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call vote on the committee report on education and student performance?
Mr. Carter?
Yes on the report as a whole, no on item 6.04, and I'm going to abstain on item 7.03.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Falls?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mrs. Kalida?
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes, on the report as a whole, I need to abstain on 8.01 because my employer is on the list of that was originally presented in the original item. I've already submitted an amendment to Mrs. Kramer, and I understand Mr. Carter's abstention on 7.03, but since I just agreed, pending, I'm going to trust that I get my explanation in the morning. So I will not abstain from that one. So I'm only abstaining from 8.01. Everything else is a yes.
Thank you. Mr. Udine?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
And Mrs. Wren?
Yes.
The report as a whole passes 9-0. Item 8.01 passes 8-0-1, and item 6.04 passes 8-1.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. We will now move on to the committee report on business finance and minority business enterprises that is before you, submitted by Mr. Salahuddin, chairperson, and his committee. The report includes agenda items 9.01 through 12.01. There were no items pulled for further discussion at agenda review. Are there any questions or comments on the committee report on business and finance and minority business enterprises at this time that were not answered in agenda review? Ms. Jenkins, did you have a correction?
I have a correction to the
Thank
business,
you.
finance, and general authorizations to item 12.01 to revise, to add in the Second Amendment, item 8.04, System 123, amended on October 24, 2018 legislative, and then also to correct the total amount for the contract, which would be an amount of $191,875. Which is an increase, what's not to exceed $191,875, which is an increase of $87,500.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments at this time? If there are no further questions or comments, do we have a motion, a second, for a roll call vote on the committee report on business and finance and minority business enterprises?
So moved.
Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call vote on the report on business, finance, and minority business enterprises?
And this is for the report as corrected with 12.01. Mr. Carter?
Yes on the report as a whole, no on item 10.43.
10 point, what, I'm sorry, 43. Okay. Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Ms. Falls?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mrs. Kalida?
Yes on the report as a whole, no on 10 point, I believe it's 4.3. I can't pull my doc up. The same as Kevin.
Thank you. Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes on the report as a whole, no on 10.43.
Mr. Udine?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Wren?
Yes.
The report as a whole passes 9-0. Item 10.43 passes 7-3. Or I'm sorry, 6-3. Math not working.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. We will now move on to the Human Resources Report. Item 13.01, that includes Addendum A, submitted by Ms. Sylvia Wilson, Chairperson, and her committee. Are there any questions or comments on the report? If there are no questions or comments, may we have a motion and a second for a roll call vote on the Human Resources Report that includes Addendum A?
Second.
Ms. Kramer, may we please have a roll call vote on the Human Resources Report, including Addendum A?
Mr. Carter.
I'm going to say yes on the Human Resource Report, but Addendum A is not showing up on the board docs. Yeah. Then yes.
Ms. Edwards.
Yes.
Ms. Falls.
Yes.
Dr. Holly.
Yes.
Mrs. Kalida.
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Udine. Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mrs. Wren.
Yes.
The report, including Addendum A, passes 9-0.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. The financial statement and controller's report for the month of March and April will be available for the May legislative meeting. I'd like to call the board's attention to the EBE report dated March 31st, 2019, which is before you this evening. Are there any comments or questions?
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
I see looking at this report that particularly our MBE number is down to 8% of our contracting. I think that this is pretty egregious, and ever since over the last couple of months, this percentage of contracts going to minority businesses keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and I would humbly request that the administration do something to rectify that to ensure that everybody has equal opportunity to participate in the district's contracting processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Item 17.01 is new business item policy 007, meetings. Are there any questions or comments on this item? If there are no questions or comments, may we have a motion, a second for roll call vote on new business item 17.01?
So moved.
Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Ms. Edwards.
Yes.
Ms. Falls.
Yes.
Dr. Holly.
Yes.
Mrs. Kalida.
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Udine.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mrs. Wren.
Yes.
New business item 17.01 passes 9-0.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. Item 17.02 is a new business item, policy 229, use of medications. Are there any questions or comments on this item? If there are no questions or comments, may we have a motion, a second for a roll call vote on new business item 17.02?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Kramer, may we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Ms. Edwards.
Yes.
Ms. Falls.
Yes.
Dr. Holly.
Yes.
Mrs. Kalida.
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Udine.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson. Mrs. Wren.
Yes.
New business item 17.02 passes 9-0.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. Item 17.03 is a new business item, policy 908.1, contracted services personnel. Are there any questions or comments on this item? If there are no questions or comments, may we have a motion, a second for a roll call vote on new business item 17.03?
Second.
Mrs. Kramer, may we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls.
Yes.
Dr. Holly,
Yes.
Mrs. Kalida,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Udine,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson. Mrs. Wren.
Yes.
New business item 17.03 passes 9-0.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. Item 17.04 is a new business item, an agreement between the Pittsburgh Board of Education and the Pittsburgh Building and Construction Trade Council, AFL-CIO. Are there any questions or comments on this item? If there are no questions or comments, may we have a motion and a second for a roll call vote on new business item 17.04? Ms. Kramer, may we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Dr. Holly,
Yes.
Mrs. Kalida,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Udine. Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
and Mrs. Wren.
Yes.
The new business item 17.04 passes 9-0.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. Are there any announcements to be brought before us this evening that do not require a legislative vote? Ms. Kennedy?
Thank you, Mrs. Wren. Just something I learned last night, which I think is near and dear to our hearts, is April is National Fair Housing Month, which, considering we want affordable housing for people to be able to live in the city, I think it's a very opportune month. And I also learned that the URA, through its Housing Opportunity Fund, is having a housing celebration and resource fair on April 30th from 5:30 to 7:30 at 412 Boulevard of the Allies. I'm guessing if you go on the URA's website, you can learn more information. But the Housing Opportunity Fund can help renters, they can help homeowners, they can help first-time home buyers, and there's other things they're exploring. And they actually have a budget of how to divvy out their money. And it's not set in stone, so money can get moved. But you can learn more about this, I'm guessing, if you go to the Housing Celebration and Resource Fair. So I urge our families who want to stay in the community, maybe make a purchase, maybe look into some rental assistance if they need it. I'm going to recommend they attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy. Mr. Udine? And then
Thank
then
you,
Dr.
Ms.
Holly.
President. Recently, the city was jolted by a verdict which did not find any wrongdoing in Officer Michael Rosefeld's murder of Antoine Rose. And the thousands of Pittsburghers came out in the streets that day and following days in protest. Among those thousands were many students who are members of Pittsburgh Public Schools. I want to congratulate those students who were conscious enough to take a position, even though it was walking out of school and missing class and defying the warnings of the administration that if they left, they would be marked absent without excuse. But they followed their conscience and expressed their anger about this travesty of justice. I would hope that not only the students find a way to express their feelings about this, but I would hope that the teaching staff and administrators and the school leaders would find a way to use this opportunity as an educational opportunity in itself. More important than some of the other classes that the students may have missed is the kind of position that they will take to follow their conscience and stand up when it's time to stand up. And I was proud to see the students take the position, and I hope that if future situations cause them to take such a social conscience position, that they will not hesitate to do so. And I would hope that we would be more interested in making it a learning situation than a punitive situation, because things like that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. Congratulations, students who walked out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Udine, and well said. Dr. Holly?
Yes, last week, we had, in the city of Pittsburgh, we had a lot of musicians, teachers who teach music across the eastern corridor here. And they had the opportunity to actually visit some of our schools last Friday. They were so overwhelmed at what they saw in terms of children participating in various forms of music throughout the city of Pittsburgh. As they were really impressed that it was part of an urban environment. This is something that we just take for granted, that we have these wonderful programs within the city of Pittsburgh, but within the school district here. So I want to say thank you to Dilworth, Obama, Alderdice, Brashear, and King for entertaining, teaching, and opening the minds of educators throughout the Eastern Corridor on what really can happen in an urban setting in terms of music education. So I want to say thank you. And I also want to thank the music department, and I forget the supervisor's name. No, I know Dr. Cruz. Who? Who? Okay, you heard her name. And Dr. Cruz. And then Dr. Walters was on a panel with another educator from CMU to talk about the importance of having music within our district. So I just want to say thank you to all of them. And of course, Dr. Lamar entertained us well at Dilworth. She was a superstar there. So we just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you because it's so important. When I go to conferences, they rarely take us into the urban areas. They usually take us into suburban school districts. Here, we got a chance to see what's real and productive. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Holly. Dr. Hamlet, did you have, no? Okay. Ms. Wilson?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to make note, because I don't think it's been said. On March 29th, the Western Pennsylvania Builders Guild, along with, in cooperation with our CTE program, with the A. Philip Randolph Institute, put on a demonstration, hands-on demonstration of the various building trades that students could be interested in. And we say this over and over again, if you don't know what's out there, you don't know what it is you could possibly do. So the students in our area were able to actually go down, talk with men and women that are in these trades, but actually have their hands on. And it was held, again, March 29th at the Convention Center downtown. They were targeting on Friday that day 7th to 12th graders, and there were 4,500 students that showed up that day. Of that 4,500, 1,300 were Pittsburgh Public School students, which is wonderful. So I'm really pleased that that was offered. It was offered again on Saturday, but for adults. So this is another one of the wonderful things that we have been able to expose our students to, and I'm hoping that they all had, and I'm sure they did, had a really wonderful and positive experience that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Ms. Falls?
Thank you, Ms. Wren. I'm sure in our communities at all levels, there are people who have loved ones in the service. I just want to reach out and touch and say, families that are back here, no matter where you're soldier, sailor, et cetera, you are as much part of this as anyone. So let me salute our military, past, present, and future. And also, I think we need to give a shout out to our medical service people. I do believe that we have seen so many fires lately. So our firemen, our policemen, our EMS, our paramedics, I think that, you know, that they deserve a shout out for the work that they do. So thank you, Ms. Wren.
Thank you, Ms. Falls. If there are no further announcements, this meeting, I may have a motion and second to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.